Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Winning Drive podcast. I'm Reeta Hubbard, the NFL chick, co-host of the Glenn and Rita show on 105.7 The Fan, with my guy Cordell Woodland from Shaking It Up Sports and the Ravens reporter for 105.7 The Fan. And the Ravens handled business in a big way against the Miami Dolphins, Cordell, as they beat them down to the brake pads, as I like to say, 56-19, and they secure not only the AFC North, but they secured the number one seed in the AFC. Quick thoughts on how you feel about this number one seed and the path that it took for them to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think them clinching the one seed is just a testament to how good this team has been this year. And I think when you look down the stretch of the last month or so, and you see the type of teams that they've been playing, I think you have to respect what the Ravens have done so far this year. I talked to Morgan Moses after the win on Sunday against the Dolphins, and I asked him about being able to not only win the division, but clinch the first place in the AFC at home, considering the path that they've had to go through this season. And, he talked about how they really wouldn't have wanted it any other way. This is a team that's battle tested. They've gone back and forth, traveling all over the country, traveling outside the country, short week after short week, big game after big game. And they have answered every call. And to be honest with you, I think that people have had some things to say about the way that they really put the exclamation mark on that Dolphins game. And I think that the way that they finished that game was just really a testament to their dominance. And I think it just really leaves no doubt. It should leave no doubt in people's mind who the best team, not only in the AFC is right now, but probably in the league.
I'm going to use the words of Stephen A. Smith and say, I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. Okay. Right. When it comes to the performance, don't care about what anybody has to say. When the Dolphins were beating down the Broncos 70-20 back in September, we had nothing to say. And so whatever it's turned to, well, Bradley Chubb torn his ACL. And while we hope that Bradley Chubb has a full and speedy recovery, one has nothing to do with the other. Bradley Chubb probably shouldn't have been out there to begin with at that point, the way that they were getting beat down, because they certainly had changed quarterbacks at that point. So Bradley Chubb probably should have not been there at that point in the game anyway. So that's the coaching decision. You made that decision, and unfortunately for him, he got hurt. And again, we don't pride in any of that. No, we don't ever want to see someone get hurt. But that being said, him being hurt has nothing to do with the exclamation mark that you mentioned that the Ravens, I felt like, had to put on the Miami Dolphins to make sure that they let everybody know that this is who we are, this is who we're going to be, and this is how it's going to continue to be as the playoffs start to fold. And so I felt that was important for them to not only win, but win big and not make a statement and make the statement that they did. Coming into this game, Cordell, I was very nervous. This was probably the most nervous I had been about a game, including San Francisco, in quite a while. And I think it was just mainly about the fact that there was so much on the line. Coming out of the bye week, I think I said that the Ravens can't do worse than 3-2. And even at 3-2, you still might be pushing it a little bit because the Dolphins were kind of on their heels. The Browns were on their heels. So it wasn't, it was like, even at 3-2, you got to be careful. You know what I'm saying? Because when you looked at the Browns schedule, when you looked at the Dolphins schedule, none of their teams and their remaining teams looked the way that the Ravens did. And so it felt like that all of those games were must wins. And so the Ravens passed the test with flying colors by essentially going 4-0 in that span as we await Saturday's game against the Steelers, which is now irrelevant because they've solidified the number one seed.
Right. And look, that's what you do. That's what you play this game for, to be able to set yourself up for the best possible scenario come January. And that's what they did by clinching home field. And like you, I had some concerns about this game. Look, I've watched the Dolphins all year. We all have. We know what
Yeah.
type of team they are when you get them outside of Miami. So while
Yep.
it's not a surprise to me that the Ravens completely blew the doors off them the way that they did, I thought Miami would put up more of a fight because they knew how important home field advantage was for them. They know how important it is to. I don't think it means. I said this before. I don't think anybody in the NFL needs the 1 seed more than the Cowboys and Miami. Both of those teams are dominant at home, and on the road they're a totally different team. But I think as the game went on, and look, Miami came into the game with their fair share of injuries. No Mostert, no Waddle, among others. But the Ravens, they had their own injuries as well. No Kyle Hamilton, no Brandon Stevens. Marlon goes out early. No Kevin Zeitler. I mean, this game, you really got to see how deep of a roster the Ravens really have. And I think that's what impressed me the most. I mean, even if you want to go to that late touchdown, those are backups getting in the end zone at that point. This isn't it's not like this was Lamar and those guys driving down the field and making that happen. So yeah, credit to the Ravens for the season that they've had to this point, despite the injuries, despite the ups and downs. They look as good as they really are.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. My favorite thing though about the Ravens in terms of like how they play, we heard Patrick Queen talk right in the San Francisco game about they play a brand of style of football that everybody doesn't want to play, and it does feel like while teams hang around with them for a little bit, eventually in the second half, that mentality that the Ravens have wears down opponents. Because I'm not going to sit here and say that the Dolphins are soft per se. Tyreek Hill is a very tough football player. They got Jalen Ramsey over there. They got guys. And while Mozart did not play, and he's a good part of their offense, a chain is faster than Mozart. I think we can all agree on that. And it felt like, as the game went on, the way that the Ravens play is just very bullyish. And that, if you're not doing that for 60 minutes, if no one else is requiring you to do that for 60 minutes, then that could become problematic. And I think that a big part of that has to do with the brand of AFC North football, where you play these teams 6 games a year, and it has always been tough. It has always been gritty. It has always been blue collar, which is a reflection of each city that is in the AFC North. There's a style of football that's played a lot to do with, the weather, or what weather used to be when it came to like late November into December. And so there's just a brand of play that I don't think other divisions as a whole incorporate. There might be teams here and there that's a little bit tough, but everybody in their division doesn't incorporate that style of play. And so I think it toughens you. I think that, the Ravens, and then, you see Cleveland, with 5 losses only, it toughens you and it prepares you to play 60 minutes of football against whoever. And you're always going to be in those games because of how you play football.
Yeah, I mean the AFC North style of play is pretty universal. They can play, they can play with anybody, and not many people can play with them. It seems to feel that way. You mentioned the Browns and some of these other teams, even Pittsburgh. They don't play great football, honestly, but they just know how to kind of struggle their way to
They
a
grind it
victory
out.
at times. Yeah, and teams just aren't able to kind of withstand the highs and lows that comes with the game, let alone the physicality. And Patrick Queen, he kind of doubled down on that when I talked to him after the game. He had some things to say about the way Miami played and how they ran the ball. He felt like, it's December football and Miami is still going outside. They're not coming downhill. Nobody wants to play head-on football anymore, in his mind at least. So, yeah, I mean, until somebody proves them wrong, it's tough to kind of go against what they're saying.
Absolutely. And that's just kind of how that goes. And so for a couple of series, it did feel like, this defense wasn't going to be able to adjust to the speed of Miami, which is extremely fast. They are an extremely fast football team. From the way that Tua gets the ball out fast, from the way that they run the ball. Of course, we know that they have Tyreek Hill. All of those things plays a role into how well that they play. And of course, they didn't have Jalen Waddle, but still, we know that they're just a very fast football team. When you look at how quick they were able to adjust to the speed, because it did take a couple of series. But the one thing that I do like about this defense a lot is that they find ways to adjust fast. It doesn't need to wait till halftime to make the adjustments. They're able to make in-game adjustments that can quickly impact the game without having to sit there for 15 minutes and discussing this.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, early in the game, it felt like it was going to be one of those games where you had to keep scoring.
Yeah,
And I
it
think
did
that's
feel
why,
that way, right?
yeah, I mean, and the Ravens they showed you that they felt that way. They go for it on some fourth downs. Both teams had their moments to where they were just very aggressive on the offensive side of the ball, because you just felt like this was a game where you were going to need touchdowns all the way
Yeah.
through. And it was kind of like the first one to blink in this game in Miami was that team, because the Ravens just never really slowed down. And you got a lot of the chunk plays in this game, a lot of big plays from the Ravens in this game. You could tell that they came into this game with the understanding that they had to be ready to go blow for blow with this Dolphins offense if they had to. And they clearly were ready to do that if it came down to that. But thankfully for them, the Dolphins offense kind of fell off a cliff a little bit on the back end of the first half. And while it looked like going into the fourth quarter that it could be a possible repeat situation of last year's game against the Dolphins, credit to the Ravens for kind of putting the lid on that game and putting them away.
Yeah, and so you'll hear a lot of people complain about, oh, well, they didn't have Jalen Waddle and they didn't have, their running back Mostert. Okay, and that's understandable. Those are impact players. But the Ravens can turn around and say, well, we didn't have Kyle Hamilton, who more than likely is going to be an all-pro when you look at the way that he's played this year. They didn't have Brandon Stevens. Eventually, Marlon Humphrey leaves that game. So there's guys that on the Ravens defense that did not play either. And I think that that's important because what Kyle Hamilton has been able to do in terms of this defense has been phenomenal. And he is absolutely a person that is, when he's out, he's missed big time. So, to me, that was an even exchange as far as I was concerned. But ultimately, look, Jalen Waddle might have affected them. I don't know, spotted them 10 points. That's still 29 points total. I mean, I don't know what you do with 56 points. I have no idea what you do with 56 points. You know what I'm saying? So that's the part that I think that, we have to talk about. Let's move on to what the offense did in this game. So we talked about the defense, Cordell, and about how, good they were despite having some key players missed on defense. And again, people will say, oh, well, the Dolphins didn't. Well, the Ravens didn't either. Now, what we can do is talk about what the Ravens had against what the Dolphins did. Now, Xavier Howard did leave the game fairly early. And we didn't see him for the rest of the game. But this is a team that coming in, they were what, top 5 in run defense. They were a very good football team in terms of defense. I think that they were considered 5th overall in defense. And so there were concerns. You had addressed some concerns coming into this game in terms of what it is that they could do. And then none of that mattered because Lamar Jackson had a day. Okay. Perfect passer rating, 5 touchdowns. We saw Jackson 5 once again. 3 incompletions, and I could argue that the incompletions probably could have been catches. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at what the Ravens were able to do offensively against that Dolphins defense, what impressed you the most?
Really just the fact that, really number one, how good Lamar was against the blitz, which isn't a surprise. He's been great against the blitz all year, but I mean,
Yep.
he was on fire against the blitz against the Dolphins. I believe he was 9 for 10 whenever the Dolphins did blitz him or under pressure. Well, he only had 4 or 5 pressures in the game, so I believe it was against the blitz. But I mean, big throw after big throw. Credit to the offensive line. They played out of this world again. And gave Lamar a lot of time back there, and Lamar picked that defense apart. And the Dolphins got to a point to where they didn't know what to do. They didn't know whether they wanted to blitz, whether they want to drop guys back. It really didn't matter. Lamar picked them apart either way. It would have been great for him and Bateman to link on that one. I think a better throw. Bateman walks into the end zone. He did have to launch out for the ball.
It's a little overthrown. We're not going to sit here and say that, but it also is a pass that he absolutely.
It's a catchable ball. Yeah, it's definitely a catch. It's a catchable ball for sure. He almost did catch it. I mean, if he's able to kind of hold on to the ball when he hits the ground. But I mean, it was good to see their connection there more than not in the game. You know, Bateman had himself one of his more productive games to this point in the season. 4 catches, 54 yards on 6 targets. That's pretty good by his standards so far this year. But yeah, I mean, Lamar just. He's just being the orchestrator back there. You know, only 6 carries for 35 yards. Not a lot done by him on the ground in this one. This is just really him picking teams apart. And I think his football mind is through the roof. I think his football IQ is sky high right now. He's playing with such poise and such confidence. And for him to go out there and get those 5 touchdowns in this game, it definitely, in my mind, I think it pretty much has to cement him as the MVP for the season.
There's been a lot of discourse about that. I don't care about any of it. You guys want statistics, and MVP stands for most valuable player. It does not stand for best statistical player. And so it is about what are you doing to help your team win football games? And I don't see anyone doing that more than Lamar Jackson. There's a lot of conversation that's been going on, Cordell, about the play to Zay Flowers, where he's like, it looks like he's like left hand. He's doing a left-handed throw, and then he shifts his body right, and you know, he throws it to Zay, which is extremely impressive. Where I knew that this game would be okay was the first series. Actually, you have Rashad Bateman who drops the pass. There's a couple of calls that goes against the Ravens that pushes them back as they were getting first down, and yet they still found a way to get a first down. I think that there's 2 penalties. Is it 2 penalties that they get after getting first down?
In the Isaiah Likely
and pass interference, which was very ticky-tacky, by the way. But hey, who are me to judge, right? But ultimately, those 2 calls get called. They both plays, I think, had resulted in first down. So they get called back both times. And yet the Ravens still found a way after that to get the first down, which to me was extremely impressive. A lot of times you get the wind out of your sails when you get so many setbacks in such a short period of time. But the Ravens found a way to continue to move the ball down the field, essentially scoring with that Justice Hill wheel route. And I think at that moment I knew that something good was going to happen out of that day, because they had already dealt with adversity very early on and still found a way to overcome those things.
And yeah, I mean, and you can go back to earlier in the season, that's not what they were doing. You know, the offense, 1 negative play, 1 turnover, 1 stop, all of a sudden the offense is non-existent. But the third and 19, 3rd and 16 play by Justice Hill, taking that screen and picking up the first down, very Ray Rice-esque, with Ray Rice in the building. And then they go back to the wheel route for the touchdown for Justice Hill. They clearly saw something there, and I believe Lamar ended up being the one to kind of hot route that Justice Hill wheel route. So yeah, definitely good for them on that one. And you mentioned the Zay Flowers play where Lamar opens up left. I mean, I think that's just, I've been saying it all year. Lamar's footwork in the pocket is underrated. His ability, he does funky things like that. You can't, that's a play that you can go to and look and say, man, that not every team can do that. Not every quarterback can do that. When you talk about him opening up left like that, and the respect that he gets from the defense, all the way up to the third level of the defense. Those are safeties getting fooled by Lamar opening up left right there.
Yep.
So when you see the type of respect that he gets on all three levels of the defense with just that type of that type of situation where he's opening up left, and then he's able to switch his stance so quick, and with the flick of a wrist, the ball is 60 yards down the field. I mean, it's insane what he's able to do, and I pity people that waste their time trying to analyze every single thing he does, or tries to look for something in his game that he doesn't do well, or the people, one overthrown ball, Lamar's, he can't throw the deep ball. Like, those type of people, man, you're really robbing yourself of being able to watch a true gem play football. And I think the way that he's playing right now, and just talking to him after the game, he's so locked in. Locked in. I mean, he really doesn't care a lot about, I'm not going to say he doesn't care at all, but he doesn't care a lot about the MVP. He doesn't care a lot about them winning the division and clinching first place. I mean, I don't know if you saw the interview post game on the field when they're showing him the cover of the Baltimore Sun and with them clinching first place. And I mean, he doesn't even change his emotion. He really is just like, I mean, that's cool. That's another notch on the belt, but we have one goal. And I think, talking to some of the guys after the game, and to their credit, they were pretty open about 2019 Coach Harbaugh as well. They were all pretty forthcoming about, the shortcoming that year and how it impacted them and how they learned from that to this point. I really do think that the guys who was on that 2019 team that's still around right now, you can tell the maturity in them, and you can tell that they've been here before, that they kind of wandered these waters before, and they understand that while they should celebrate what they've been able to accomplish to this point, you can't ride this ride but so long, because come playoff time, it's a reset. It's a reset at that point, and you've got to kind of reset your mind and do it all over again.
Yep, I completely agree. Is it true, Cordell, because you were at the game on Sunday, that when they showed a video board of Lamar, I guess eclipsing 800 rush yards, he was very unbothered by it? Apparently, they showed him on the Jumbotron, and his teammates was trying to get him to, acknowledge what they were showing, and he was just kind of like, no.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not into that. That's cool and all, it's cute, but not really interested in that.
Honestly, I didn't. I missed the part where they put him on the Jumbotron, but I won't. Because I could believe that. I mean, that's how he's been. That's how he's been about everything. I mean, I pity any reporter that tries to ask him about, any personal accolade or anything like that, because he's going to give you nothing. He has nothing to give you. It's all about the Super Bowl. It's all about going out there and dominating each of their opponents each week. And I just think, you watch Lamar, he is in a groove. They've all talked about not trying to peak too soon. And you can make the argument Lamar has saved his best football for December. I mean, ever since we've gotten in December and now we're in January, he has turned it to a new level, mainly because he's become more of a, he's used his legs more and opened up that aspect of his game. And, he was already really good as a passer this year, but once he started to show, like, look, I'm not afraid to run the ball when I have to, that has kind of just opened up a whole new layer of this offense in the month of December.
Completely agree with you. You and I had talked about this numerous times on this podcast, that, once this stretch was coming, he was going to have to start taking over games. And by that, we meant, like, you're going to have to use your legs in addition to your arm. And, we look at the Cleveland game, and, there was times where you probably felt like Lamar just was hesitant about doing that. But now, when you come out the bye and you realize, hey, in order to solidify this number one seed, we got to hopefully be 4-1. At worst, they probably needed to be 4-1 at worst. And right now they're 4-0. And
Mhm.
they probably, and look, we don't know if they're going to be 4-1 because we don't know how this game is going to work on Saturday. We don't know who's going to start on Saturday, but the work has been done. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of that has to do with Lamar, just, hey, if I gotta run, I gotta run. If I need to make this play with my legs, that's what I'm going to do. And being more comfortable in doing that, even though we know he wants to be a guy in the pocket to do it. Before we get to our pats in the hat though, I want to shout out Ben Cleveland. This is a guy that has dealt with some adversity since he's been here. There are times when we question why he was still on this football team. He's come into training camp, out of shape, overweight, or whatever. And, there's been a lot of discourse about, what his role was going to be on this team, if he was even going to be a formidable backup when he was called. And I thought that he did a really good job on Sunday. And that's what you're going to need down the stretch. When guys are not able to play, you're going to need your backups to come in and step up and be um, factors into this game, because that's the only way you're going to win. Injuries happen. You know what I mean? And so while the Ravens had lost three key players going into Sunday's game, Zeitler, Hamilton, and Stevens, they were able to overcome that because the guys that were taking their place were guys who were still able to make plays. And I think it's important to acknowledge, those types of guys. So shout out to you, Ben Cleveland, because I didn't know what was going to come from that.
Yeah, none of
It
us
was
did.
it's been up and down for you thus far, but you showed up, you showed out, and I'm here to give you your flowers today on this
I
podcast.
think that's a big reason why it's important for athletes to not listen to talking heads like us or
Absolutely.
anybody. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because would have been Cleveland did buy into the stuff that everybody's been saying about him, and he starts to get down on himself. You don't get that. So yeah, I mean, people underestimate how tough of a mind you have to have as an athlete to do what you do, because you're going to have a lot of people that aren't out there doing what you do that are talking down on you, talking about how you can't play, you can't do this and that. And it's important that when your day comes and you do get your opportunity, you're able to go out there and play well. This is their livelihoods, right? Ben
Yep.
Cleveland didn't get to the NFL by accident. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a credit to him and a credit to the rest of those guys that stepped up. I think that's the one thing you can definitely take from that win against the Dolphins is that the Ravens have depth. They have a lot of depth. They have guys that can step in all over the place. We've marveled at the revamped wide receiver room and stuff like that, and they're improved for sure over based off of what they've been. But it's all over the place. It's
Yep.
depth guys all over the place. That cornerback room has plenty of depth. The offensive line is showing themselves to be pretty deep in their own route, in their own right. Look at the running back room. Dobbins goes down. Keaton Mitchell goes down. You still have Justice Hill who comes in, has a really good game. Gus Edwards has a good game as well. So I think, tight end, Mark Andrews down. Here comes Likely. Here
Hmm.
comes Kohler. So I think all across the board, they have a championship roster.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And shout out to Eric DaCosta for putting that roster together. Both the veterans and the draft picks are really gelling together right now. And that's been a big part of their success. And I think we should give some pats on the hat here on Winning Drive. All right. So pats on the hat, friend. It's time. Who is your first pat on the hat? I got a feeling I know who it is.
I would throw you for a loop, but that wouldn't be fun right now. I'm not even gonna play any games. Let's just go to the top. We'll start with Lamar, 18 for
Yeah.
21, 321 yards through the air, 5 touchdowns through the air, perfect passer rating. One of the two quarterbacks for the Ravens to get a perfect passer rating in this game, because of course Huntley comes in, throws one pass, and it's a 19-yard touchdown. So a perfect passer rating for him as well. But Lamar also has the 35 yards on the ground on 6 carries. He's just the man. He's playing like the best player in the NFL right now. He's in such a groove. He's so laser focused right
Yep.
now, and I am just so happy that we're getting the Lamar that we're getting, because there's so many people locally too. Everybody wants to just push blame to national guys looking down on Lamar. I took too many calls over the last couple of off seasons from local people, Ravens fans, bashing Lamar, swearing how it's better to take draft picks over keeping what you have. So it's a lot of y'all out there too that's out here enjoying the ride, patting Lamar on the hat right now. But I didn't forget about some of the stuff y'all were saying about this dude and how y'all were ready to just throw him away for God knows who just a couple of months ago. But here he is, balling on a contract. And really, not only is he worth every cent, you can make the argument he's worth more than what the Ravens gave him to this point. So credit to him for getting his money and still taking his game to the next level. Since day 100%. One, he has made it clear it's about a Super Bowl, and he continues to show you that.
He told you that on draft night. He said, y'all gonna get the Super Bowl out of me, believe that. And guess what? A lot of y'all are starting to believe now. Whoever didn't before, you do now. Welcome to the club. You was a little late, but I guess you're here now, so it's cool. But the light's about to come on, so you're real late. Okay. I am giving one to Justice Hill. That's another person y'all wanted to throw away. I was never one to throw Justice Hill away. I've always thought that he has value on this team. I've never been a fan of the zone read option that him and Lamar did. They just never seemed to be on sync. But outside of that, I felt like Justice Hill was a guy that if you gave him an opportunity, he was going to capitalize off of the opportunity. And he did exactly that on Sunday. 3 rushes for 48 yards, 5 targets, 5 receptions. So he caught everything he got for 64 yards and a touchdown, beautiful touchdown that Justice Hill had. I am a fan. I've always been a fan. I've always told him that, I'm rooting for him. And while I love Keaton Mitchell, and I hope that he is recovering and doing well as he's trying to recover from his ACL tear that he had. The way that y'all tried to throw Justice Hill away because you like Keaton Mitchell was egregious and disrespectful. And I hope that you learn now that Justice Hill deserves some respect. So I'm giving mine to Justice Hill, who absolutely deserved to have his pat on the hat. Who else you got, friend?
I'm going to keep it on the offense. And this one was tough. I'm going to go with Isaiah Likely because Likely just continues to stay hot. 2 catches for 42 yards. 2 touchdowns on the 2 catches. Likely is just balling right now. He's balling, and he has filled the role of Mark Andrews as good as you could ask anybody to fill that role. And I think going forward, you no longer can the Ravens get a pass for not finding a way to get Likely involved when Andrews is on the field. He's too good. He's too good of a player to be an innocent bystander when 89's on the field. I love Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is great. Everybody knows that. But Isaiah Likely has something to offer in his own right. And it's imperative, I think, for the Ravens to try to capitalize on what he can give them going forward, even when Andrews is on the field.
Completely agree with you there. I'm gonna try to give the defense some love because look, I know they scored 66 points, so there's a lot of love that we could give to the offense for sure. But guess what? The Dolphins only scored 19, so we got to give some love to the defense. I'm going to give mine to our guy Roquan Smith. First interception of the year. Yes, it came a little late, week 17, but it was an imperative one because the Ravens had just fumbled. Gus Edwards had just fumbled, and then they turned it right back over. That one-handed catch was phenomenal. My favorite thing about Roquan is I love watching him because, in the first couple of series, Roquan just kind of looked out of place. He looked kind of like he was in no man's land because I think he was trying to do both. I think he was trying to do run and pass, and it was kind of putting him in conflicting positions. And once Roquan committed to the pass, he was finally like, all right, I'm just going to commit to the pass. He was rolling from that point on. And I love that about him. I love that he's able to adjust so quickly. He's so football smart and he's so talented that he's able to say, okay, I got to pick something. And he made the choice. And in my opinion, he made the right choice. So shout out to Roquan, man. I mean, he is just a phenomenal player. He's a phenomenal leader. Thank you, Chicago Bears, for being stupid enough to trade him away for what you did, because he is worth 5 second-round picks. Okay, I don't know. He's worth more than what the Ravens gave up for him. And this defense, he is a big part of why this defense is playing so well. He is clearly their leader, and he continued to show that on Sunday. One more, who you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Geno Stone to go on the defensive
Yeah.
side of the ball. Led the team in tackles. Roquan did have that one-handed interception, which was amazing. His was after the Zay touchdown, but Geno is the one you're thinking of that happened right after the Gus fumble. The very next play, Tua overthrows it and shoots
My
it
bad. Yes, you're right. I
to
apologize.
Geno. But Geno just being in the right place at the right time is what he's done all year. And the ball just seems to find him. I don't know what it is. He just has a magnet on his chest for the football, but he tackled really well in this game. I thought he was in position a lot. And I think he understood he had big shoes to fill with Kyle Hamilton not being out there. He and Millette. I thought Millette played really well in this game also. But Geno Stone, I thought, who's been kind of quiet over the last month or so, it was good to see him kind of get back in the fold and make some key plays for them.
7 interceptions for the year for Geno Stone, which is tied for second in the league. So shout out to Geno for just continuously finding a way to make plays when need be.
He's probably going to be a Pro Bowler this year too.
Yeah. Does that make 3 for us? 3 pats on the head? We got to give an honorable mention.
Yeah, we got 3. I gave 3. Did you give 3? I started, so I think you're on your.
Okay, so I'm on my last one. All right, cool, perfect. That means Zay Flowers is getting my last one. Rookie receiving record for the Ravens. He had 3 catches on 3 targets, 106 yards, and a phenomenal touchdown that he had in the game. And so Zay just continues to be so impressive, man. I mean, I love the way this kid plays. I love the way he finds ways to get open. This offense is just really clicking. Like, I probably would have given it to Rashad Bateman had he, caught the first one, because I thought that Rashad Bateman played well in the game. After that drop, he played well. And I think that we have to start, giving him his flowers as well. He's had some ups and downs this season, but I think that he's important into what it is that the offense wants to do moving forward. That being said, Zay is just on one right now, despite, being injured. And he's just still finding ways to contribute into what this offense is doing. So shout out to Zay for his rookie receiving record on Sunday's game. And hopefully we'll see that and more as the season continues into the postseason. So those are our pats in the hat. Next episode, we'll talk about, the Steelers matchup. It is supposed to be, F Steelers week. Feels a little different, Cordell, because one team don't really need the win, but it's also the Steelers. So do you start them? Do you not? Do you take the rest? Do you take the rust? That is something that we're going to talk about on the next episode as we preview the matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are fighting, clawing, scratching to try to get a playoff spot for this weekend. So we want to thank you all for listening to Winning Drive. From Cordell to me, this is Winning Drive.